Hello, good evening. Um, my name is Anthony. I am Anthony Sinera. I'm the founder of the Zen Happiness Project. I'm very excited that we get started with our 10-day meditation challenge together tonight. I want to, I'm just going to start with a quick introduction, then I'll get into a little bit of housekeeping here. In 2007, I was a mess. I graduated college, I got married, bought a house, started my first professional job, all in the course of about 3 months. And I had long been suffering with depression, but I discovered a new phenomenon during this period of life, anxiety. I had my first panic attack. I started having trouble sleeping at night. My life just got really difficult. There's no other word for it. Life just felt really hard. And I was very lucky. I had a friend who we called him Tom the Buddhist, and I knew that Tom meditated, and I had gotten some advice that meditation might be helpful at this difficult period in my life. And lo and behold, I went to this Sunday night meditation group, and we did about a half an hour guided meditation with an instructor. And it felt like, for the first time in 6 months, that I could breathe. It's like somebody taking a 20-pound bag of weights off of my back. It's just amazing. I instantaneously fell in love. By 2008, I was meditating pretty regularly. I started going on retreats. In 2009, I took vows, formal vows, as a student at a Zen Buddhist monastery, where I continue my training with a teacher to this day. I meditate daily. I go on retreats. And I really feel like my life has been incredibly positively transformed by a daily meditation practice, which leads me to why we're doing this 10-day challenge. I have been on vacation for the better part of the summer, and one would think somebody who loved meditation and has all this positive associations with it, I'd be meditating like a champ, and certainly I was for the majority of the vacation. But in the last week and a half or so of my vacation, I moved. I was getting ready to start this new job. I was doing a little travel. I got out of my routine. And over the course of 9 days, I meditated only twice, which for me, I think is probably the longest I've gone without meditating daily in a long time. So I'm really lucky. In 2013, I started the Zen Happiness Project. And the whole idea was I was looking for friends to meditate with. And reached out to a couple of my friends here, and we're getting together, and we're doing this 10-day challenge. We're going to meditate every day together for the next 10 days. And this is great for beginners who are looking to start a meditation practice. We're going to talk a lot tonight about how to actually, the one-on-ones of how to meditate. And then this is also excellent for any of us who are already meditators who need a little bit of help getting back on track. That's certainly where I am this week. I have meditated yesterday and today, so already just getting this challenge organized has been really helpful for me in terms of getting back and on track. But hopefully this 10 days will serve you well wherever you are in your meditation practice. Just some housekeeping things about the way that this works. So the cool thing about this being live is there's a chat function here. I see Kevin, I see George, I see Susan, a few others in the chat room. That's great, thank you. Please say hello in the chat. I'd love to hear from you. There is a 30-second delay between my talking here and your text in the chat function. So I will be checking the text box every once in a while to see if you have any questions, and I'll try to address them. But if I'm not responding right away, it's just because of the delay. If you're watching this recorded, there are a lot of people who participate in the challenge, and there's not so many, nearly as many people who are watching this live. So if you're watching this recorded, you can always email me at zenhappinessproject@gmail.com. If you're signed up for the daily emails, you can just reply to that. It goes directly to my inbox. I get it right there on my phone. If it's something quick and easy, I'll reply right away to you after work. And then I end up talking by video chat or phone with a lot of our friends through the course of the challenges they're working through, especially if they've got something that's a little nuanced or needs a little one-on-one help. I've been very lucky over the last 2 years to introduce hundreds of people to Zen meditation. And that's what we're going to be talking about tonight. It's an incredibly simple practice, but that by no means means it's simple. It doesn't mean it's simple. It means that it's not easy, right? Simple practice that isn't easy, right? We're confronted with our mind. Right? And that's the real challenge here of meditation practice. So the structure of how this is going to go, I'm going to take about 50 minutes here. I'm going to try to wrap this up by 10 o'clock. I want to keep it to an hour. Last little housekeeping note. If you're watching this on a mobile device, you don't have the chat function. So you can send me an email. I will, from time to time, check the email on my cell phone here. Again, that email address is zenhappinessproject@gmail.com, and I'll answer any questions that you send by email. The whole reason this is live, instead of just a recorded video that I send people to, is the back and forth is really helpful, right? There are always little things that come up. You know, this is a practice that I could describe on a bumper sticker, right? We sit still, we bring our attention to our breath, we focus on the breath. When thoughts come, we let them go, and rinse and repeat, right? So you can, you know, describe this in 20 seconds. We're going to go into a little more detail today, but you could go into 2 hours worth of detail and only be scratching the surface, right? So I want the feedback, I want the questions as we go along the way. After the beginner's introduction, I'll probably, in the interest of time tonight, won't do a guided meditation. We'll see how we're doing on time. We might do 3 or 4 minutes of silent meditation together, or maybe if we have 10 minutes, I'll do a little guided meditation. We'll practice that together. But because I got so many responses, about 310 people signed up for the challenge, and I got maybe 40 or 50 people replied to the introductory email and explained why they were participating. And a lot of people are in the same boat that I am, that they are meditators, they know how to meditate, but they've been out of the habit, and they want to use this challenge as a way to get back into the habit. And I think I'm particularly well situated to help folks who find themselves in this position because in the course of my introducing people to meditation, I discovered that it was very easy to meditate, right? Again, simple instructions, maybe not so easy to do, but simple to learn. Much more challenging to create a healthy habit, right? We all know this. January 1st comes around, we're going to exercise every day, and yet next thing we know, it's January 15th and we've gotten on the exercise bike twice, right? And I think our meditation practice is the same way. So in the course of my instruction, I've really started focusing in on habit formation, motivation, and commitment devices. I actually even formalized this in my research and my thesis for my master's in education, where I focused on habit formation for new meditators. So I'm going to talk about that a little bit at the end of this video. And we'll also really weave that through the emails over the course of the next 10 days. Last comment about that, and I'll get into the instruction. I really rely on the feedback from the people who are in the challenge, right? I try to shape this to who's participating. So if you have questions, if you have particular struggles, any kind of input, positive, negative, I really believe in constructive feedback, right? So if something isn't helpful for you or is missing the spot, let me know, and I can adjust the course as we go along. I mean, I really, I think the best challenges that we've had over the last year and a half that we've been doing these things as the Zen Happiness Project community have been where the challenges where people have been really getting into it and discussing it a lot. So that was a very long introduction. So I'm going to get into the actual beginner's instruction now. So, I'm going to start this with two things that meditation is not, right? First off, meditation is not an escape. And second, meditation, particularly when we just start, is not shutting our brain off, right? I hear from a lot of people who start meditating, oh, I gave up. I just couldn't turn my brain off. My brain just couldn't stop thinking. My response to that is brains think. In the same way that ears hear and that eyes see, our brains think. It's in its nature, right? Even when you're asleep, your brain is thinking, right? Your brain is going to be conscious or unconscious, but it's going to be processing. That's a sign of a very healthy brain. What we do in meditation is we turn the volume down on thoughts a little bit. We change the way we relate to them, right? We start to discover stillness in learning how to let go. But we do not turn the brain off, right? And that real struggle, that finding those distracting thoughts and identifying them and recognizing just how consistent that is, that's where the richness of our practice comes in, and that's where the effort is in recognizing and letting those thoughts go over and over again. So it actually comes a time where eventually you'll be grateful for the fact that you have an active mind, because it's what allows you to develop a meditation practice, develop this ability to focus and start to control your mind. That first point of meditation is not an escape, I think, is really crucial. Many of us who come to a meditation practice, and again, you go to the story I opened with, I was really anxious. I was struggling. Life was hard when I first started meditating. I was looking for an escape from my pain, right? I needed an end to my suffering. This practice, particularly what we engage in here in the Zen Happiness Project, when we're doing breath awareness, a concentration practice, Zazen, Z-A-Z-E-N. Zazen is literally sitting meditation, sitting Zen. When we're practicing Zazen, we're learning how to be completely and totally present for our life. Right? It's actually a nice transition. So if meditation is not escape and it's not turning off our brain, what is Zen meditation? I would say that this is practice for living our life fully and completely, living an authentic life, right? We talk a lot about mindfulness, about being present, about being aware, about being awake, right? These are the qualities we're trying to cultivate in our meditation practice here. Just a little side note, I love that we call this a meditation practice, because it begs this question, what are we practicing for? And I'm going to, re-hit this idea about living presently, right? A meditation practice where we recognize that we're distracted, we let go of that distracted thought, and we return our focus to the experience of our breath, is training us how to be fully aware, to place our mind, to be the masters of our own mind, and to place our focus, our attention where we want it, right? And, when I sit and I meditate in the morning, I imagine that I'm preparing for how I want to live my life through the course of the day. If I'm lucky enough to be able to have a phone conversation with my mother and spend some time listening to her, I'd like to truly be listening. I don't want to be thinking about what I'm going to say. I don't want to be planning about the workday ahead of me, right? I want to be there, right? And that doesn't come naturally. Most of the time when we're engaged in conversation, we really are distracted by the noise in between our own head, right? So meditation practice for me really is about practicing how I want to live in the world, practicing being fully present. So in this Zen practice here, we're really going to build this on three concepts. We're going to talk the most about our body. We're going to pay good attention to the physical posture. We're going to talk a little bit about our breath. This is a breath awareness practice, a concentration practice. We'll talk a little bit about breathing. And then lastly, we'll talk about our mind. And I think what people are surprised by when I give this introduction is that I spend so much time talking about the body and less time talking about the mind than people anticipate. And one of the great benefits of this practice really is developing this mind-body connection that really is inherent to our existence. But it really is rooted in this fundamental presupposition here that a still body is a prerequisite for a still mind, right? We need to learn how to be physically still to be able to be mentally quiet, right? So we're going to talk about the posture a good bit. I just want to check in real quick because we got a few people here. Some people have checked in the text box. So first, if you have any initial questions just about my introduction here, I'd love if you threw them out. B, if you feel so motivated to share what it is you hope to get out of this session, I'll make sure that I get around to addressing any of your questions or concerns. So at any point through the course of the next half an hour, please jump in. George just made a wonderful comment here. Practice also allows mistakes as a learning tool, which is just beautiful. Lily, I love that. That's awesome. Lily says, I like practice as a term because we practice what we do rather than be. That's wonderful. You know, I was talking in a meditation group, and I was giving my little spiel about why I love this term, a meditation practice, and what are we practicing for. And my girlfriend chimed up and chimed in, and she said, you know, she loves that it's called practice because it's an invitation for it to be messy. That it doesn't need to be perfect, right? That there's no performance here. It's just something we do, we can try again, and there's this sort of forgiveness in practice that she finds really welcoming. And I love that take on it too. So it's pretty awesome. Thank you, George. That was great contribution. So while people are checking in, especially if they have any questions, I'm just going to start talking a little bit about our body. In this beginner's instruction, I don't talk about posture for full lotus, half lotus, Burmese position, or using a seiza bench, because I assume that if you're using any of those sitting positions, that you know something about a meditation posture. So the instruction I'm going to give is based on sitting in a chair. And I want to start off with there is nothing sacred or magical about sitting on a meditation cushion. It happens to be that over time, many of us have discovered that the easiest way to sit and support our a healthy spine through our meditation practice for a long period of time is in a full or half lotus on a meditation cushion. That's certainly true for me now, but it wasn't for the first few years that I sat. I found a meditation cushion to be a very painful and uncomfortable way of sitting. So sitting in a chair is perfectly acceptable. It's really about again, this idea of being able to sit still as possible without creating discomfort. So if we go back to this foundational idea of we can't have a still mind without a still body, right, we're going to focus a lot on our posture. So the first thing I recommend is not to sit on a comfortable couch like I'm sitting on here. I've got this beautiful big couch. And it's not ideal for meditation because it does not support a healthy spine. You sort of collapse into it. If you do find yourself in a chair like this, I'd recommend using a pillow, some kind of support to give you a little bit better of lower back position. Ideally, if you're sitting in a chair, something like a kitchen chair, something firm with 4 legs, something that you can place 2 feet flat on the ground, legs at a 90-degree angle, and you can support yourself by sitting on your bottom with a nice, healthy tilt forward to your hips. That's usually the best case scenario for a chair. But if you do find yourself on a couch like this, you can, again, give yourself a little lower lumbar support by putting a pillow in the small of your back. So a healthy spine is the primary objective here. So we're not looking to be too far forward, back, left, or right. And when you're first sitting, you can rock a little bit to help try to find your natural center. One of my favorite meditation instructors, a guy named Jon Kabat-Zinn, instructs people to imagine embodying a position of nobility or integrity. And I love that. If you imagine embodying nobility, your chest opens up, your spine elongates, there's almost like a buoyancy to your posture, right? I love that. So we want a nice open chest. We want nice, healthy, natural breathing through our meditation practice here. We're going to elongate the spine. We're going to feel that extension and that balance of not too far forward, left or right, all the way up through our spine. We can help support that just by tucking in our chin just a little bit. There's something about sitting that many of us jut our chin out, that puts some pressure at the base of our skull and the last couple of vertebrae there. So tucking our chin in ever so slightly will help complete that healthy spine all the way through the top of our head. In Zazen, we're going to breathe in and out through our nose. We're going to leave our mouth closed. If you find that you're salivating a lot with your mouth closed and you're finding yourself swallowing, that can be distracting to your meditation practice. So you can press your tongue lightly against the roof of your mouth to suppress that a little bit. Breathe in and out through our nose. And we lower our eyes. We don't close our eyes all the way in Zazen. We just softly gaze at the floor. We let our eyelids close a little bit, anywhere from halfway to 3/4 of the way. And we just very softly gaze on the floor. And we're trying to strike a balance here in what we're doing with our eyes that sort of parallels what we're trying to do with our body. We're trying to be awake and present, but not alert and tense, right? I want to be able to let a little bit of light in, that I don't start to get sleepy or start to daydream, right? I want to be connected to the reality in the room and the environment where I'm in, but I don't want to be distracted by the surrounding environment either, right? So letting my eyes lower a little bit naturally and letting my gaze soften on the floor sort of supports that balance. And the last thing to discuss is what we're doing with our hands in meditation. In Zazen, in Zen practice, we tend to place our hands in what's called the cosmic mudra. Mudra literally means sort of hand position. Cosmic is this universal idea. So the cosmic mudra is a circle. It's formed by taking our active hand. So I'm a righty. I write with my right hand. That's my active hand. I place that palm up, and then I place my left hand also palm up, and I reach my thumbs around to meet each other. And I place that in my lap, resting against the blades of my pinkies, resting against my belly. That's a very calming, very settling position. We could talk about the cosmic mudra for quite a while. I'm going to leave it with, it might be new, might feel a little bit different, but there's a reason that millions of meditators for hundreds of years have been using this posture. There's a calming and a centering effect, and I would encourage you to give yourself over to that practice a little bit. If that's not a comfortable position for you, you can rest your hands on your thighs. Again, you know, we're looking to be still here, so I think wrapping your hands together like this has a tendency to create numbness or discomfort, right? So hands resting on the thighs is a good alternative because you can find some stillness there. So this is a great time to jump in if you have any questions about the physical posture, right? So just to review real quickly, we're going to try to be as still as possible for the period of time that we're meditating. To be able to do that, we need to be comfortable and attentive to our posture. So if we're sitting in a chair, we're going to put our feet flat on the ground, our legs at a 90-degree angle. We're going to tilt our hips forward a little bit to create that beautiful curve to our lower lumbar section. If we're in a couch like this, we're going to put a little pillow behind our back. Nice broad open chest, straight spine, all the way up through the top of our head. We're going to tuck our chin in just a little bit. We're going to gaze softly on the ground. We're going to place our hands in the cosmic mudra right in our lap. And we'll find a nice, still, calm and collected body for our meditation practice. So what this really allows us to do when we come to this posture is we become very aware of our body when we're still. It becomes very easy to identify where there's tightness and tension. And the first thing we attend to when we start sitting is letting go of any tightness or jittery, anxious muscles we might have. We could spend a couple minutes getting in touch with where those hot spots are in our body. We find that we sort of habitually store tension or anxiety in the same places in our body, and you can kind of, through the course of your day, start to recognize that and invite those areas of your body to soften or to relax, to be at ease, which can be a valuable tool for stress management through the course of the day. But in this stillness, we really highlight the motion that is happening. And when we're being still, what's happening is we're breathing, right? We have this massive expansion and contraction of our lungs. Our diaphragm is pushing and pulling air in and out of our body. And if we've got a good posture and a healthy spine and we've slowed down and we're being a little still, we start to notice that our breathing slows down and it deepens, right? We start to feel the expansion of our breath all the way down into the belly, and obviously our lungs end halfway through our torso. But when our diaphragm is expanding and our body is relaxed and our posture is good, you can feel your breath all the way down into your lower abdomen. The Japanese have a word for lower abdomen. It's hara, H-A-R-A. It literally translates as lower abdomen. My understanding is in the yogic traditions, they refer to this as dantian. It's the physical center of our body. I'm just seeing a question here that I'll get to. Dan, that's a wonderful question. I'm gonna come back to that in a minute. So in our breathing in Zazen, we're not controlling our breath, right? And there's actually a really valuable lesson here, right? This is not a deep breathing exercise. We're just gonna let breathing happen naturally. The body knows how to do it, right? It does it when we're asleep. It does it when we're laughing, when we're talking, right? The body can breathe. We're just gonna let it go on autopilot. And this leaves us to the third component of Zen meditation, is what are we doing with our mind, right? So we've got this nice still body. We have got good natural breathing. What are we doing with our mind? You know, going back to the very beginning when we talked about what is a meditation practice, and meditation practice is about being present, about concentration on our breath. You know, breath is a great anchor for our awareness if we're trying to learn how to be present, because breathing only happens in the moment, right? It's physical sensation. It's really central to our life. It's incredibly vital, right? You can go days without eating. You can go a couple days without water, but you can only go a couple minutes without breath, right? We need this breath. We need it now. There's an urgency to breathing. And we don't cling to breath. As vital as it is to us, I exhale and I let go of this, you know, really valuable life-saving thing that just happened. I mean, if I hadn't just taken this last breath, I'd be turning blue, right? But I just breathe in and breathe out like there's nothing to it, right? There's no clinging, there's no attachment to breath, right? And that's really wonderful. I don't spend any time thinking about breaths I took yesterday. I don't spend a lot of time thinking about, you know, worrying about breaths I'm going to have in the future. And so if I can train my body, if I can train my mind to be with my breath, I can learn how to be free from the depression and sadness that comes from living in the past, and the worry and anxiety and fear that comes from looking forward, right? So much of the mental benefit of a meditation practice comes solely from being in the present moment, learning how to be in the present moment. So when we look at the mind and we say, okay, what are we going to do here? We're going to focus on the breath, right? So in Zazen, once we find our posture and we settle in and we figure out where there's some tension, so, oh, my shoulders are up around my ears, I'm just going to let those relax, let the tension melt away. And I'm going to turn my attention to my breath. I'm not going to control my breathing. I'm just going to let it happen naturally. And I take a breath in, I take a breath out. And before I know it, before I've even gotten that next inhalation, I'm starting to think about the grocery list. Oh, I'm going to go to the grocery store. That means there's not going to be no almond milk in the fridge. And next thing you know, my mind is running away, as our minds are prone to do. In meditation, we're called to recognize this, to see the mind's activity for what it is, and to let it go, right? I like to say we let go of a thought almost as if it's mid-sentence, right? This period that we set aside, whether it's 3 minutes, 5 minutes, 10 minutes, whatever we're doing for our meditation practice for the day, during this period of time, I'm going to worry about life stuff later. I'm just going to attend to my breath. If it's important enough, it'll come back and it'll bug me later, right? I'll remember. For this period of time, I'm just going to be here. I'm just going to be present. I'm just going to follow my breath. One of the things that we do in Zazen that I still do to this day after 7 years of practicing diligently is I start my meditation practice for the first couple minutes, usually for 20 or 30 minutes I do this. I count breaths, right? And we inhale, we count 1, exhale, count 2, inhale 3, exhale 4, count all the way up to 10. When I get to 10, I let go of the counting and go back to 1. I breathe in 1, exhale 2, right? And we use the count of 10 because it doesn't require a lot of cognitive processing, right? It's not a math problem. We can count to 10 pretty easily without a lot of distraction. And this is helpful because I find myself when I get to 3, 4, oh, I wonder what I'm going to wear to work tomorrow, and I think, is there enough air? My mind's off again. I can recognize a little more easily that I'm thinking that I'm distracted, right? The counting are kind of like guide posts keeping me on the track here, right? So, and the practice is literally that, right? Recognizing thoughts, letting them go, and returning to the breath. And what develops slowly over the course of time is we start to turn the volume down a little bit in thoughts. I was at a meditation group a couple of months ago, and there's this wonderful 86-year-old man who'd been meditating for many decades. And in this group, we sit for about 20 minutes. And George said when we were having a conversation after a little discussion after our seated meditation, he said, "That was wonderful meditation for me. I went from 60,000 thoughts a minute down to 15,000 thoughts a minute." And I love that, right? The seasoned, experienced and wise meditator is saying that, in 20 minutes of meditation, what happened for him is that he cut the volume of his thinking down by 75%, right? He didn't eliminate thoughts. There was not blankness in this, still pond, or there's not even a ripple in the lake and you can see the reflection of the moon, right? No, there's none of that. There's disruption and activity. That's the very nature of our mind, right? But we can start to turn the volume of that down, right? Bring the intensity down. We can make it a little bit more manageable. We can find some rest. We can find some longer and longer pauses. And what happens after we start practicing for the course of days and weeks and months is we're able to make these moments where we're able to just count our breath and not get lost in thought last a little bit longer and a little bit longer. And when we do start having distracting thoughts, we let go of them sooner and sooner, right? And it's a wonderful practice because we start to develop stillness, confidence, some stability in our life. There starts to be a mind-body connection that we can tap into very quickly. Find yourself getting stressed out, and you take a deep breath, and suddenly it feels familiar, right? There's this all these sort of positive associations now with quieting yourself and focusing on your breath. So I think I've talked enough now. I'm gonna stop. We did the body, we did the breath, and we talked a little bit about our mind. The last thing I want to say here is, I think there's something really important about acceptance during this practice, right? Your brain's going to think. You're going to have meditation sessions that you'll want to call good, that are calm and blissful and feel, like everything you imagine meditation was going to be. And you're going to have sessions that you call bad, and you were distracted and you thought about work and you felt anxious the whole time. And I want to encourage you to let go of those false distinctions and recognize that there really is only meditation or not meditating. And learning to accept the nature of your mind and the agitation you may or may not be feeling that day is one of the great benefits of the practice as we start becoming a little bit more accepting of life on life's terms, that things just are the way they are. And that's, again, one of the great benefits of a meditation practice. So we've got a few questions here. So Dan asked, is it possible to meditate with a cold and a headache? George answered that he said yes, acknowledging the discomfort and letting it go by focusing on your breathing. You'll probably find that your discomfort will fade. George is right on the spot here. I think we can meditate under any circumstances. You know, one of my most read blog posts was one I wrote a year or two ago called Meditating in a Noisy Room. Right? I think so many of us get hung up on this idea that this meditation's got to be this exact specific kind of way, and it's not worth doing if, you know, there's an incense burning and, you know, a candle lit and perfect silence and stillness, right? That's not the world most of us live in. We have dogs and neighbors and cars, and I just moved to Queens, New York. There's 747s flying overhead when I'm meditating in the morning. And you can absolutely meditate with a cold or a headache or in a noisy room, because one of the things you learn through meditation practice is just about recognizing, letting go of the story that we've attached to that, the feelings that we've attached to that, and just returning our focus and awareness to where we want to be. And I think George's point is great, that we really, through that process, we start finding a lot of relief from our suffering. Physical pain, I mean, this is all scientifically proven, right? Physical pain is mitigated by meditation. Mental pain and anxiety and frustration is mitigated by meditation, right? There's a lot of comfort just in the letting go of things. There's a whole nother talk, an hour-long conversation on, there's a beautiful story, the parable of the two darts. If you do a little Googling, and the Buddha and the two darts, and he talks about, you know, the first dart that we're hit by is the actual physical pain, but the second dart is the one that's self-inflicted. It's where we wish that things were different than the way they are. You can't escape the first dart, right? There's going to be pain in life. You're going to get sick. You're going to have a cold. You're going to have the headache. You can either accept it and kind of go with the flow, or you can rage against it and wish it was different, right? Neither is going to change the situation. You're going to have the cold. One is a lot easier way of living. The other is more painful, right? So that's where we start having some choice, is how we relate to that. Danielle says here, that same counting and volume adjustment throughout the day, even when not sitting to meditate, gives me such a feeling of accomplishment, incorporating and practicing in everyday life. That's awesome. Danielle's one of my dearest friends. She's a regular in our weekly conference call, and that's a great, I mean, I think, you know, Danielle demonstrates there the value of making meditation practice a regular part of our life, because we can really draw on that through the course of our day. George just said here, discomfort may be mandatory in life, but suffering is something that we add on top of ourselves. Absolutely. Very well said, George. Couldn't agree with you more. So, you know, we don't quite have enough time. Well, you know what, let's do a, we're going to do like a 5-minute guided meditation here. This is a chance just to get in touch with the posture, try out the position, become aware of your breath, start to focus on your breath, and then see how the mind has a very natural way of kicking in, starting to comment on or criticize what's going on, and take this opportunity to experiment with recognizing when you're distracting your thinking, letting go of that, and just returning to the breath. So we're going to do this for about 5 minutes here. I'm going to ring a little bell to get us started. I'll ring it twice at the end of this period to wrap it up. We're going to start. We'll just do a quick body scan. We'll check in, see how we're feeling physically, help us sort of settle into the present moment. And then we'll talk just a little bit about following the breath and getting in contact with the sensation of the breath. And then we'll have a minute or two of some silence where you can see the mind at work as it starts to comment on all that. We're going to start our meditation here by doing a little body scan. A body scan is a way of just checking in with our physical body and seeing where we have any anxiety or tension. I like to start by bringing my mind's eye right to the very top of my head and feeling around my scalp, my temples, my forehead, the muscles around my eyes. If there's any tension, any tightness, just invite those areas to soften, to relax, to be at ease. Again, we're going to keep our mouth closed. We're going to breathe in and out through our nose here in this practice, but it doesn't mean we need to clench our jaw. We can let our jaw soften. If there's any tension through our neck, we might want to just check in. Do we need to tuck our chin under a little bit? Are we, leaning to one side or the other? We let our shoulders soften. Feel the rise and fall of your chest with each breath. See if that helps relax or soothe any tense muscles you might have through your rib cage. There are a lot of muscles all the way through your core, all the way down into your hips. See if there's any tightness in your torso. Check in with your legs, your thighs, your calves, all the way down to your toes. Now we've settled into the posture a little bit. We can turn our attention to the experience of the breath. There are a lot of places the experience of the breath is available to us, right at the very tip of our nose. We feel cool air rushing in, warm, moist air rushing out. You can follow the course of the breath through the nasal cavity, down the back of our throat. There's the expansion and contraction of our lungs, our rib cage. If our posture is good, if our body is relaxed, you can feel your breath all the way down into your lower abdomen, all the way into Hara. I find it very calming, very centering to place my attention all the way down at the base of my stomach, about 2 inches beneath my belly button. I find there's something that draws me away from the thoughts that are occurring in my head, helps me feel connected and rooted in my body. Once you come in contact with the breath, I'm going to ask you to just gently note each in and out breath, counting in 1, exhale 2, inhale 3, 4. Being careful not to control your breath. This isn't a deep breathing exercise. We're just going to let breathing happen naturally. When you get to the count of 10, simply let go of the counting, go back to 1, 2, may notice thoughts starting to poke in. Just recognize them, accept them, let them go almost as if mid-sentence, and just return back to fully experiencing your breath. Counting in breath 1, exhale 2. So it's a brief example, but it's a good experience, right? You can see how even in just 4 or 5 minutes of meditating, if you're like me, you feel a little bit more at ease, you feel a little settled, right? Your body is a little bit more comfortable, you know, feel like emotionally I'm just a little bit lighter. You know, the beauty of meditation is it doesn't take much. You can do a minute, 3 minutes, 5 minutes of zazen. It can make a real big difference in your life. I think this is the last thing I'll say about the practice, sort of logistically, before I talk a little bit about habit formation in the next 10 days of the challenge that we'll do together. You know, I think when we're new to something, we get really excited, right? And you came here for a reason, right? You're stressed out, there's sadness and depression, maybe you got a difficult, you know, life situation you're working through. Your motivation is very high when you have these kind of challenges. And you may have sat here for this exercise and gone, wow, 6 minutes felt just amazing. I'm going to do 20 minutes of this every day for the rest of my life. Right? And that's a wonderful instinct, right? It says you saw the benefits of it. But I can tell you, having introduced hundreds of people to meditation, it's not hard to start meditating. It's very difficult to maintain a daily practice. So I'd ask you to consider for yourself, what's a period of time that's so modest that I can't possibly come up with an excuse for why I can't do it. If you start saying I'm going to do 20 minutes every morning before work, what's going to happen is after 2 or 3 days, you're going to get a late night and alarms, and you're going to snooze a couple times, and the next thing you know, you're going to be rushing off to work, and you're not going to have 20 minutes, and you're going to blow it off for that day. But maybe you would have had 3 minutes. Maybe you would have had 5 minutes. Maybe you would have even only had a minute. Right? If we set up for ourselves the expectation we have to be doing 20 minutes, we're going to miss an opportunity to find some stillness, some calm, a way of starting or ending our day. Right? So I would set for yourself a goal for this 10-day challenge that feels like there's absolutely nothing that can stop me from doing 10 minutes a day. And then whatever that goal is that you just said to yourself, I'd cut that in half. Right? So if you said there's no excuse I can come up with to not find 10 minutes, I'd recommend that you start with, I'm going to do 5 minutes every day for the next 10 days. You know, there's very good research on this now. Duke University did a pretty comprehensive study on habit formation in 2008, and they found that for something that we do once a day, it takes 64 consecutive days to form a new daily habit. Not 28, which had been the old thinking, but it takes 64 days. So if you're serious about wanting to experience the benefits from meditation that I've had, and I think others in this group will share with you, I can tell you from personal experience that when I first started meditating, I would sit for half an hour at a time. I was doing it once or twice a week. And it was wonderful. I loved that half an hour. But my life really started to change for the better when I started sitting 5 minutes every single day, and I had done that for a month straight. Right? There's a cumulative effect here that happens when we start to integrate stillness and quiet into our daily life that has a much bigger effect over a long period of time than we could ever achieve just in 1 or 2 days. So, you know, I'm really hammering this home, but being modest in our goals in terms of the period of time that we're setting aside. You know, I ran a little bit longer doing the introduction than I wanted, so I do want to just take 5 minutes here before we get to the top of the hour to talk a little bit about habit formation, right? You know, I think the very first thing that's important to recognize is that it's hard to form new habits. Right? Recognizing that it's hard, that's not just something that we can will ourselves to do. Most people who try to form new habits fail, right? That'll help us marshal the resources and put the kind of effort into this that we need to be successful. So 1, acknowledge that habit formation is hard. 2, get a partner. One of the first things we're going to do starting tomorrow in the meditation challenge is we're going to direct people to the discussion group where you can try to find somebody to pair up. You can email me, I can connect you with somebody, or you can go to somebody that you know in your family or friends and ask them to be your meditation buddy. And take this next 10 days to use a partner as an accountability tool. That this is somebody that you work with that's going to help you. Oh, hey, Dusty's in the chat. Hi, Dusty. I didn't see you there. I love that my friends Danielle and Dusty here are wonderful, and I saw Kevin was on the chat earlier, and I just have to say on a personal note, one of the best things about the Zen Happiness Project are the friendships that I've formed through the course of this. I really, people who had been strangers before we started meditating together and now are dear friends because of practice. It's a real gift. And it's sort of perfect because what I'm talking about is getting a partner, right? Started the Zen Happiness Project because we need a community effort to sustain something like a daily meditation practice. It's just too hard to do alone. If it were easy enough to do alone, none of us would have any of this problem. January 1st would come around, we'd all make our New Year's resolutions, and we get to December 31st, and we'd all go, I guess I, you know, completed another perfect year, 365 days of only eating vegetables, right? It's not that easy. We need each other. So, you know, I talk about this a lot, and I'll talk about this in during the course of the emails. The single most scientifically proven way to increase the likelihood that you will succeed in forming a new habit is a written commitment. It's a weird trick, but it absolutely works. We're pretty good at living up to commitments that we say out loud to other people, but we're much better at living up to commitments that we've written down. Pen and paper. It doesn't work if you type it. There's a lot of science behind it. I won't go into it now, but it's proven. I did my master's research on this specifically. I tested it with new meditators and people who sat and wrote down on their first day of meditation instruction. This week, I will meditate for 5 minutes every day immediately after I get out of the shower. Those people increased their likelihood of meditation by 27% over the control group. And that's consistent in commitment device studies that have been conducted in a number of research settings. Rewarding ourselves is really powerful. You know, we think a lot about negative reinforcement, you know, slap on the wrist for a kid, a shock collar for a dog. But the fact of the matter is animals and humans are more positively shaped by positive reinforcement, right? We respond really well to rewards. Habits that exist because there's some kind of cue, and then we go through a habit, and then there's a reward, there's a payoff, right? When I am driving down to 25A heading east, I start to recognize the stores, and I start to get a little excited. The hairs on the back of my neck start to rise up because I know, my whole body knows I'm about to show up at the drop zone. I'm going to go skydiving and do one of my favorite things, right? So, you know, there's a trigger, and there's a habit response, and I get this reward of being able to go skydiving, right? So if you can meditate and then reward yourself, and rewards happen in all kinds of ways, right? You can just literally pat yourself on the back. Hey, good job, Anthony. You meditated today, just like you said you were going to. Excellent job, right? Sounds a little crazy to talk to yourself in the third person, but we respond really well to positive praise, right? I'm not saying you need to go and eat ice cream every time you meditate, but positive reinforcement, finding some kind of reward, is a great way for instilling a habit. When we're new to something, we need to trip over it. I literally, when I'm forgetting to meditate, or I'm finding myself out of the loop, or I just moved into this new apartment, my meditation cushion is in between the door and the bed. I cannot walk out of my bedroom without having to literally trip over my meditation cushion in the morning. That is a great reminder to be meditating. This is from a guy, again, who's been meditating daily for 6-7 years now, and I still need these reminders. And I'm I don't want to harp on this too much, but my last tip here is short time periods, right? There's this wonderful research that we'll talk about a bit during the 10 days about tiny habits, right? And this whole idea that if we make it manageable, if we make it doable, right? If we used to meditate for half an hour every day, but we're out of the loop, maybe we need to reset by starting with 5 or 10 minutes. Right? Being really modest in our expectations and getting into the action of actually doing it before we worry about lengthening the time. So we'll talk a lot about habit formation through the course of the 10 days, and really about how we make this a part of our life. Oh, I left out, I'm sorry. I left out one important one, and this is actually a nice note to close the session with. One of the best things that we can do in terms of instilling a new habit is simply reminding ourselves that we love this, right? Meditating can feel a little bit like a chore to me sometimes, because I'm getting up, I'm tired, and I got to meditate and brush my teeth, and I got to do my push-ups, and I got this whole morning routine, and it starts going, ugh, it's a checklist, right? But when I remind myself that the reason I meditate is to feel the way I did 15 minutes ago when we finished that little guided meditation, and all's right with the world after I meditate, right? And when I can remind myself that I love this, and this is all rooted in the idea of I'm very good at doing things that I want to do and not so good at doing things I need to do. I want to eat a cheese pizza, I need to eat the spinach, I end up eating the cheese pizza, right? I want to meditate. I don't need to. I want to meditate. And I think focusing on that, remembering the rewards and the benefits and how much it enriches my life, is a great way to sustain my practice. So I think I don't see any questions here. A few people are chatting. That's wonderful. I'm looking forward to getting to know some new friends through the course of this challenge. Again, if you're watching this recorded and you have any questions, you can email me at zenhappinessproject@gmail.com. Really looking forward to these next 10 days that we'll have together. And thank you, everybody, for sharing your practice with me tonight. Thank you.